Welcome to New Skills, a series of creative workshops made by working designers for V&A Dundee. My name is David P. Scott and I'm a freelance artist and photographer. After leaving school in 1999, I studied architecture in Newcastle. I've always enjoyed the aesthetic qualities of buildings, but found the process of designing them wasn't for me, and so dropped out after a year. In 2001, I did a portfolio year at Cardonald College before heading to Duncan of Jordanstone to study fine art. My practice at art school involved working in a variety of mediums, including photography, video, music, performance, as well as drawing and painting. After graduating, I ran an off licence while writing, recording and performing music, alongside developing my skills as a photographer. Since 2012, I've worked full-time as a photographer and videographer. I specialise in photographing people and places and do a lot of event documentation. I also work as an artist, producing prints and paintings, alongside continuing to explore writing and recording music. My art practice also involves working as a tutor and a facilitator with various organisations including the DCA, the McManus and Tayside Healthcare Arts Trust. Living and working in Dundee with an interest in the built environment, I enjoyed watching the construction of the V&A. Since it's opened, I've documented events there, I've visited with various photography groups, and I've actually rowed across the river from Wormit to see the building from the water. So this is my studio. I share it with my wife, who's a printmaker. She's over on this side here. Here I have my computer screens for editing my photographs and my videos. And over to my left here, there's a setup for painting as well as printmaking. I do a lot of lino cut printing as well as screen prints, which I design here and then print at the DCA studio. So over the years, I've worked with a variety of different equipment. When I started taking photographs, it was on film. So this is the film camera that I still use. It's something that I don't do as much of as perhaps I used to, but it's still a medium that I thoroughly enjoy. When I started as a professional photographer, it was all DSLRs. That was the main way of taking photographs. So this is a Nikon D750. And 24-70 is your kind of standard zoom. I also have a 70-200 that I use. Though recently I've started working with mirrorless cameras, and I'm in the process of changing from DSLRs to mirrorless, mainly because they're smaller, they're a little bit cheaper, so you don't have to have as much insurance for working with them. And the image quality is much of a muchness between the smaller camera and the larger cameras. In addition to these cameras, I also use phones and tablets. So I have an iPhone here, which I use for photography. I use it for time lapses, sort of backup video for larger video projects. And a tablet, an iPad, which I use for taking photographs. Generally speaking, I'll use it to document teaching or sort of when I'm facilitating groups and such, because to go in with quite a large camera can be quite daunting, whereas if you have a phone, people tend to relax a lot more. It's normal, it's an everyday type thing. And for me, the image quality is just as good. There's so much that you can do with these devices. So let's look at some images. This is an image of the Tay Rail Bridge, taken 15 years ago from a degree show at Duncan of Jordanstone. I love how the part of the bridge that crosses the river is framed within the bit that curves round towards the Dundee side. This was taken around about the same time. This was in Berlin. I love the detail of the graffiti in the top of the building. So these are darkroom prints from 35mm negatives. These were made at the DCA in Dundee. They feature allotments, photographs of allotments up in the Law Hill. There are a lot of allotments throughout Dundee, and all of them feature wonderful structures that have been built by people from just scrap material, recycled, upcycled, whatever you want to call it. And I just think they're fantastic structures, and they work really, really well with this film. This is Kodak Tri-X, and it's pushed 2 stops, so it makes it a little bit more kind of contrasty. This is a digital scan from one of those negatives. Again, we have the foreground framing the background with this little aperture, the kind of hole in the hedge. And here's the bridge again, with the city in between and the shed in the foreground. This is another darkroom print. This was taken in 2002, I think. And it's an alleyway. I love the leading lines here, how the edges of the building are drawing you down into the kind of darkness with this little light at the bottom. Another thing I'm fascinated by is workshops, studio spaces, anywhere where people are creative. This was taken on a boat building artist's residency with the Archipelago Folk School. So this was in Mull in 2019. In my personal work, I also like to take little details. This is the sign on the Asda in Curtin. I just love the little kind of sunshine and the top of the air with the clouds in the background. And this is one of the bridges over the Kingsway. A technique that I employ in a lot of my portrait photography is to get in close to structures and then use the leading lines to lead into a subject. Alongside structures that people have built themselves, I'm fascinated by desire lines. So these are the paths that people make through fields and off the beaten track, essentially. So this is down in Invergowrie, down by the river. This is the roof of the Hospitalfield Mortuary Chapel, and so this is in Arbroath. This was taken for a video that was a kind of virtual tour because of lockdown. I love the detailing in the roof. There's so much to like about this building. This image actually shows something that was taken with quite a wide lens, so 20mm was the focal length. So we can see the distortion here, how it's pulling the corners, and that's something to bear in mind when you're taking photos of buildings. Again, this is the outside of the Hospitalfield Mortuary Chapel, and we can see here the wide angle is pushing the top in. So this is called converging verticals. If they were to run off, they would connect in a point just outside of the frame. And that's something that can be fixed in Photoshop, or if you're on a tablet like this, I would perhaps suggest using Snapseed. So let's open this image. So Snapseed is a free app. You can use it on Android or Apple devices. It's owned by Google, so you just need a Gmail account to sign in and use it for free. You have a lot of filters here along the bottom, but we're interested in tools, and particularly the perspective tool. So perspective can be changed in a number of ways. Tilt, which tilts the image like this. Rotate, which turns it like this. Scale, which increases or decreases, and then free, which moves any of the previous ones. If we hit auto, you can see here we've got a rough approximation of the corrected converging verticals, but we can see here there's a few artifacts, and that's because the program has filled in these gaps, and that's not something that we want. So if we go to fill mode and just hit either black or white, doesn't really matter, I prefer black. We can see here how the photo has been changed from its original shape. It's not quite accurate enough on auto, it's almost there, but if we take the tilt function and we just tilt it just a little bit more, we can see that's starting to make a little bit more sense. So I'm happy with that, we'll keep that. And if we go back into tools and go to crop, and we'll just crop it down. That looks good to me. And so there we have it. Converging verticals are now fixed. We can go into looks and we can sort of change it to black and white. We can pop the colour, just whatever whatever we fancy. Quite like the black and white there. So we accept that and then we export it. I like to keep a copy with permanent changes. Okay, there we have it. Trust your instincts and stay curious. If you make work that you believe in, if you keep developing your practice, exploring, experimenting and moving forward, you'll be a success. Thanks for watching this month's New Skills. Check out V&A Dundee on Instagram for future videos, and more about my work can be found at davidpscott.com and burnbox.studio.